So we've got our squash here. These actually cooked really fast and they're looking great. They're actually done. They finished in like 25 minutes because that oven is crazy hot. And I'm going to flip them over so you can see what they look like. Like this oven cooked them really quickly. So some of them aren't brown, but some of them are beautifully brown. And so you can see what happened here is there was a hot spot in the oven. So it's very clear to me that right this side of the oven, this was actually the back of the oven, these actually cooked really quickly and browned beautifully. Well, these guys, you know, this oven, this corner is still good, but right here, this oven has a cool spot. And you can see that these veggies really didn't brown nearly as much, but these guys are done. Actually, this actually brings me to a good point that I'd like to mention, which is partway through your cooking time, it makes a lot of sense to turn your pans around and even rotate them, right? So like I've got the carrots and I've got the Brussels sprouts and I've got the squash. And partway through, what I realized was that the leaves on the Brussels sprouts were starting to brown a little too quickly and they had originally been on the top shelf. So what I did is I moved the Brussels sprouts down to the second shelf so that it was protected from the direct heat by the pan of the squash and the pan of the carrots. And so you can do stuff like that to kind of manipulate the cooking to make sure it's like moving at a speed you're comfortable with. But these guys, they're done. And so what I would have liked to have done is caught them a few minutes earlier and maybe moved them around a little bit so I could have taken these guys that were in the warmest part of the oven and moved them over here to replace them with the stuff that's in the middle. And I gotta tell you, anything that's in the middle of your roasting pan will cook slower than the stuff on the edges, right? So this stuff is all gonna cook fastest, as you can actually pretty much see, right? These are all on the outside and these guys were on the inside. So these guys cooked faster and browned more, right? These were in the hottest part of the oven. These guys were more close to the middle, and that's why they didn't cook as quickly, because they're actually protected by all of this surface area. Now, it's important to know that these same principles, everything I've explained about roasting vegetables, also apply to grilling vegetables, right? Like your grill is going to have like a hot part and a cool part. Like there needs to be as much surface area contact with the metal as possible. You know, you need to brush things with oil and salt and pepper and make sure they're thoroughly coated before putting them on the grill. So pretty much everything I've taught you today about roasting vegetables also applies to grilling vegetables as well. It's been a few minutes more and now our Brussels sprouts are done. And I mentioned before that I moved them underneath the other pans. I moved them to the second shelf so that they were protected by the pans of squash and carrots on the top shelf, because what I wanted to do was protect these leaves. These little leaves are starting to brown really quickly, and you know they're actually fragile. The whole Brussels sprout is actually kind of a hard vegetable because the core is hard, but these leaves are really delicate and can singe really fast. And so by moving them down a shelf so they were protected from the direct heat coming from above by the pan of carrots above them, it kept the whole Brussels sprout, or kept the top of the Brussels sprout from burning while the inside still cooked. And these are forkable. They're perfect. We've got good browning underneath. I would eat one, but they're like nuclear hot right now. So I might be able to taste one in a second. Let me see. Oh, these are looking really good. These look great. And again, you can see that this part of the oven was hotter and that the ones around the edges cooked a little bit faster than the ones in the middle. Like we've got a little bit of browning. And so again, it makes sense. Like if you kind of in the middle of roasting, pick them up and look at them and you see that some are cooking faster in one place than they are in another. This is why it's really important to rotate your pan in the middle of cooking, to move it to a different part of the oven. So if you see that they're cooking too fast here, you rotate the pan so that this part of the pan is now in the hot part of the oven, or you move it to the other side of the oven where it's maybe not nearly as hot. And if you notice that the ones in the middle are cooking a little or not cooking fast enough, you are always welcome to scoot those guys to the outside and move the ones on the outside to the middle. It's actually really helpful to keep them all evenly cooking. And I think they look great. I'm going to try and eat one, and hopefully it's not going to be super hot. I'm going to eat a little one. Hopefully it's cooled off enough. Oh, it's hot. Oh, God. That's really good. It's really hot. I'm burning my mouth, but it's worth it. These are delicious. So we've got our squash, which is finished. We've got our Brussels sprouts, which are finished. And now we're going to check on our carrots, which I think are finished too. So let's take a look. Ooh, it's hot. Come here, you. Oh, these look gorgeous. Let's see what we've got here. These are beautiful. I want to protect my countertop here. Oh, those look good. They're nice and cooked. Like they've got some blistering on top, which is great. The bottoms are nice and browned. Oh, those look beautiful. These look so good. And they look like this because there is a lot of room in this pan right between them. They're not crowded. Like they've had plenty of time to like cook without getting steamed, right? Like look at the browning on some of these. Like that's just beautiful. I got a little brownie bit here where I said that the thinner ends would cook faster. It's totally normal. And you know, I want to tell you a funny story about the first time I ever roasted veggies. Like I was very young and I was like, I'm going to roast vegetables. I want to be healthy today. And I very smugly sort of threw a bunch of vegetables in a pan. And I had this like, it was like a roasting pan, a big roasting pan for like a turkey. And I filled that thing to the brim with vegetables. I had potatoes, I had carrots, I had parsnips, I had turnips, I had beets, like every possible like root or hard vegetable you can think of, I put in that pan. And it was like probably 3 inches thick of vegetables. Put it in the oven. I was so excited. Put it in at like 350 because I didn't know what I was doing. And then like an hour later, I checked it and I was like, they're all still raw. Checked it half an hour later, poke, poke, poke. They're all still raw. Checked it an hour later, kind of stirred it up. The potatoes turned to mush, kind of covered everything in like this potato sludge. Poked it a little bit more. The carrots and the beets were still hard as a rock. Put it in for another half hour, pulled it out. Moved it around again. Everything was now covered in kind of like burnt potato sludge, but the hard veggies were still hard and impossible to eat. And like, it's a really good point, or it's a really good story to illustrate like what happens when you don't put a little care and knowledge into roasting vegetables. Like if you just throw a bunch of stuff in the oven and like expect it to roast, like there's a good chance that it's not going to work. There's too much stuff in the pan, like everything's too thick, like the veggies, you know, are all cut different sizes. Like you've got soft veggies with hard veggies, like the soft potatoes with like the really hard beets that took an act of God to cook through, you know, and it was a huge mess and it was super disappointing. And, you know, I was trying to be healthy and it kind of turned me off of roasting vegetables for a while because I was young and silly and, you know, I didn't, you know, I take it, when you're young, you take every mistake as like a personal slight against yourself. But when I learned how to roast vegetables in a restaurant, it really changed the game because like I can throw these in the oven really quickly and not touch them, right? Like I chop them, I toss them with oil and salt and pepper, throw them in the oven, and then I go about fixing the rest of my dinner and they're done. Like, and then I have beautiful, delicious vegetables ready to go with my dinner that are not high maintenance. Like these can actually sit out for, you know, a few minutes before I serve them. Like not much is going to happen. They are what they are, you know, and it's the easiest way, at least, you know, effort wise, to make vegetables that are delicious for almost any meal.